Finding success as a musician isn't about what you know or who you know. It's about what you do. It's about continuing to show up when it gets hard, even especially when it gets hard. It's about taking risks and hoping that they work out. Sometimes they do. Most of the time, they don't. I mean, take it from me. I have been in this business in some form or fashion for nearly 20 years. Over a decade of that has been professionally at a very high level. And I have learned a lot of really important things about what it takes to succeed as a musician. So in this video, I'm going to share 3 of the most obvious, let's say, secrets that I have learned in my career with you. Now, the first secret is this. We all start at 0. Everybody has to start at their 0. Now, all of our zeros are a little bit different. Where you start is not where I started, where he started, she started, etc. But we all have to start at our own figurative square one. And we have to progress through our own hard work if we want to make anything happen. When I moved to Nashville at 24 years old, I knew no one. I had no friends, I had no contacts, I had no network. It was just me all alone with a drum set. My goal was to make it as a drummer in the music business, to join a band. Before I had moved here, when I was in college, I went out of my way, sacrificed my time, and put my money on the line to have a drum solo filmed in a recording studio in Atlanta where I went to school. Now, this is before the days of the smartphone. I had to pay somebody to bring their camera equipment and set things up and film something that looked, to my eyes, kind of like an instructional DVD that would play on repeat in Guitar Center in the drum department, which oddly enough is where I used to work when I was in school. And I watched all these DVDs and I thought, well, if I can make a video like that, maybe I'll get a gig. So I paid to have this thing filmed, and then I took the video and I put it up on my YouTube channel, which regrettably I have pulled down. I really wish I had not pulled that down, but it's gone. So I put this on YouTube back in 2009, and then I took a link to the video and I put it on Craigslist in an ad looking for an audition as a drummer here in Nashville. Sounds ridiculous, right? Well, it worked. I got contacted by a band that was called The Rust at the time. I practiced the songs. I did all the work without any guarantee of any payoff. I showed up. I did a good job at the audition. I got the gig. And fast forward 10 months later, and we had done a House of Blues tour across the United States of America. We had gotten a manager, and we ultimately ended up changing our name to Throwing Gravity and got signed by Lava Records, which was underneath Universal Republic, under the direction of a guy named Jason Flom, who is an industry legend. He has signed so many massive acts. If you've never heard of him, just Google him and look at all the people that he has signed. It's insane. Massive rocket ride. We ended up cutting this 6-figure record. Actually, 2 of the singles were mixed by Chris Lord-Alge, who is like the pinnacle of rock mixing. I don't think my drums will ever sound better. I'll leave a link actually to one of the songs on Spotify that you can hear Chris Lord-Alge's mix on my drums if you want to check that out. It's pretty cool. So anyway, the point is this. I share that not to like toot my own horn or anything, but to prove that you can show up with nothing, take a little bit of risk, and just do the work. And you can go from 0, where we all start, to something great. Okay, so the second secret, and this is the one I will say separates the winners from the losers most often in my experience. Consistency is critical. It's not enough to just show up. You have to keep showing up. You have to keep going. If we rewind before I moved to Nashville and go all the way back to when I first started gigging in bars, I was like 15 years old playing drums until 2 or 3 in the morning in bars in Athens, Georgia, which is a big college town. It's where the University of Georgia is. I couldn't even drive. My dad had to drop me off and pick me up from shows and then go to work the next day. God bless that man for his sacrifice for that. Fortunately, I got a driver's license ultimately and could do it myself. He didn't have to do it too long. But for context, this is how it starts, right? Like I started playing gigs before I could legally even get into the bar. I would play 4-hour sets of just mostly cover songs. And playing those gigs led to me playing more gigs in college, figuring out how to book shows. I mean, I'm talking to booking agents at 16, 17 years old, booking my band in high school, keeping the checkbook, trying to figure out how to turn it into a business. We get to college. I'm playing more shows in college, booking shows, playing a ton of shows, renting rehearsal spaces, practicing all the time. I continue to show up over and over and over again. Before I ever got to Nashville, I had auditioned for and joined a ton of different bands in Georgia, played for a ton of bands in LA where I lived for a year and a half before I moved to Nashville. And so by the time I got to Nashville, I was in a position where I had had like 10 years of experience of gigging and auditioning and practicing and playing to cut my teeth. I kept showing up. And so when the time came to audition for what would ultimately become a major label band, I was ready. And then if you fast forward beyond that, I started releasing my own songs after another decade of a career between 24 and 34. I started releasing my own music that I mixed and mastered and produced and wrote and sang on and played on and did everything myself to prove to myself that I could do it. At 34, I did all that and had to figure out a whole different thing of releasing my own music and trying to promote it. I mean, I would pay for packages on Fiverr. I started pitching to playlists. I recommend you do neither of those things. But I kept going. I kept making sacrifices and taking chances until I ultimately figured out that ads worked really well and creating content worked really well. And then I figured out that other people were interested in this, and I shared my journey on YouTube. And if I hadn't have kept going and done all of those things, this YouTube channel wouldn't exist. My business, DuPree X, would not exist. And I would not have a way to continually do what I love and support my family and spend my days making music and helping other people make and market their music as well. The only way out of the fire is through. You have to keep doing it. If you can keep showing up, you'll outlast the competition and you'll learn along the way. You'll cut your teeth and you'll get better and better and better. And the last secret is this: compounding rules. When I hear the word compounding, I don't know about you, but when I hear the word compounding, I think about money. It's like, oh yeah, if I invest, it will compound over time. But compounding applies everywhere. It applies in relationships. It applies in finances for sure. And it applies in your career. Rewind all the way to the start. I started playing drums at 9. I played every day after school. I would come home, I would skate with my friends, and then I would play the drums to my favorite records. I eventually ended up starting a band in high school, and I played drums with my friends, thankfully, after school every single day. That led to playing shows starting at 15. That led to playing tons of shows from 15 to 24 across Georgia, LA, and most of the Southeast. Then that led to me getting the gig with the Rust that ultimately became Throwing Gravity and ultimately got me a record deal. Then fast forward from that, because I had all of that experience, when that band ultimately fell apart because our record got shelved and not put out and it kind of destroyed us, I ended up being able to audition and get gigs as a sideman, which ultimately led to me playing for artists like Jana Kramer and Tonic, who has sold millions of records. All that to say, every single tiny little step along my journey helped me to learn something new that rested on the shoulders of what I had already learned before that. Go all the way to the end, and everything I had learned from playing on sessions, being in mixing sessions, producing other artists, and playing shows, being part of multiple rocket rides, and seeing how the business operates, it led to me being able to make music of my own for free, basically, in my basement because I had the skills, release it, and then figure all that out along the way. I watched major label artists get marketed, get tours. I looked at how records were promoted, how they worked singles at radio, and I could take all that information and apply it somewhat to what I was doing here. Even though I was an independent artist trying to figure it out, I wasn't starting from 0 like I did way back in the day, right? My zero was a new zero. So everything we do compounds. So even if you don't think you're learning something, even if you feel like you're just spinning your wheels and releasing music into the void, I promise you, you are learning something. Even if it's just a massive lesson in what not to do and what doesn't work, it is educational. There is something to be taken away from it that you can apply next time. You can show back up to the plate and hopefully you can knock one out of the park. So I tell you all of this to give you a little bit of my story. A lot of people on this channel have asked about my history in music, so here's a little bit of it. If you want more of this, if you want like a full, history of my career, then maybe drop a comment and let me know. Maybe I'll do a video like that if there's enough interest in it. But I tell you all that to encourage you. I want this video to be encouraging and inspirational. I don't want it to be like a, hey, look at me type of thing. It's meant to prove that you can start with nothing and just use what you have and keep going, learn along the way, and good things will ultimately happen if you just don't quit, if you just don't give up. I hope that at least one person who watches this video is not that story. I hope that you watch this video and you decide, hey, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep making music for the rest of my life because it's what I love to do. I hope that you can redefine what success looks like for you, and that music is not just a means to an end where hopefully I'll make $1 million one day, but that every time you sit down to write a song, every time you release a song or make something, you're filled with the passion. It's reignited within you, and that you can find and experience the joy of making music and sharing it with other people for the rest of your life. So that's it for this one. I hope you've enjoyed this little rant of mine. If you did enjoy this video and you want to go deeper with topics just like this every single week, then I hope you'll subscribe to my newsletter, The One Thing. Every single Tuesday, I send out one thing that I am either thinking about or testing to succeed as an independent artist and entrepreneur in the digital age. So if you do want to subscribe to that, I'll leave a link to do so in the description of this video, along with some links from other stuff I've talked about. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.